Jersey's own Zach Gelb. Or maybe it's Pennsylvania. Anyhow, it's one of the two, I'm pretty sure. The Zach Gelb Show continues on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back, Zach Gelb Show. Time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios is 4:15. Lots to do today. We have Chase Utley reaction. Also have to talk some Jets, Giants, and Eagles. And now joining us on the hotline, since it's a mixture of both New York and Philadelphia sports, is a tremendous talk show host on Sports Radio 94 WIP and WFAN. So we get a blend of both New York and Philly as we broadcast to you here in Jersey. And that's my good friend, Jody McDonald. Jody Mac, what's happening, pal?
Z. Gelb, how you be?
I'm doing great. I'm 22 years old and I have a job out of college, so it's great.
It's a good start in life.
Yeah, and I'm my own program director, so I don't get yelled at.
That's smart. If we can set it up that way, that's the only way to go.
No doubt about that. So let's get to Utley first last night. Do you have a problem with the two ovations that he got with the curtain calls?
Absolutely not. None. First, the standing ovation when he leads off the game, followed by the curtain call after the first home run and the second one. It's just Philly showing the love. Philly fans take so much grief because they're hard-nosed fans, because they're ready to boo and scream and yell and overreact and everything else for change. They show their love, and yet there's still some Philly fans that find fault with other Philly fans for rooting for someone in a different uniform. It was a blowout game. Chase Utley is in a group of Philadelphia athletes that's so small. For as many players as they've had come through that town in the last 10, 15, 20 years, Brian Dawkins, that's about it. I think it's a two-man group, to a lesser extent, Jimmy Rollins, and we'll see what Ryan Howard is like after his playing days in Philly are over, that they can do no wrong, that they're always going to be loved. And they wanted to show their love last night. Turned out to be a blowout game, and Chase Utley's highlights were the only highlights from a Philly fan perspective, so I had zero problems with it.
I couldn't agree more, and I think it's foolish if people are complaining today about the ovation that you give Chase Utley, especially with the baseball team that is playing in a meaningless game. It's not like the Phillies are in a wild card hunt. If that was the case, if that was the case, then it could be a little bit different. But in the last 20 years, you're right. There's those special athletes that really just resonate with the city of Philadelphia. You mentioned Brian Dawkins, Chase Utley. I'll throw in Allen Iverson in there as well, and also Howard and Jimmy Rollins. In the last 20 years, and you've been doing this for a long time, if you had to pick one athlete in Philadelphia, who do you think's the most beloved in the last 20 years?
The two that I mentioned at the top. You can make an argument that Ryan Howard and Jimmy Rollins will, when all is said and done, have better overall careers than Chase Utley, but I always believed Chase to be the most popular amongst the fan base because of the way that he played the game. Philadelphia has always had an affinity for guys who played like their hair were on fire, who were ready, willing, and able to run into a wall or get their uniform dirty, and that's certainly the way Chase Utley played the game. So on top of his production and everything he accomplished, he also was a quote-unquote Philly-type athlete. So I would say he would be the one on the baseball side, and yeah, Brian Dawkins was the same thing. Played with such emotion, played with such passion, was a physical player who Eagle fans like. Eagle fans have always believed in hard-hitting defenses and like, and certainly Dawkins filled that mode. And they're both class guys. Doc coming back to the Eagle organization in a more full-time role is going to be taken in by Philadelphia fans and loved because he was such a beloved player. I'd call those two, Dawkins and Chase, 101A.
All right, so let's get to those Philadelphia Eagles. I was at training camp yesterday, and I thought it was a bad job by Howie Roseman. I understand if you don't want to fully get into Lane Johnson, but I think you at least have to address the communication issues and the concern of when did Doug actually find out about the Lane Johnson news?
It could have been handled better. I would say it was handled sloppily, which is not a good sign going forward, but this is still the baby steps of Doug Peterson, head coach. So he's going to learn how to handle himself and what he can or can't talk about, who he should or shouldn't address in a press conference and the like. Could it have been done better? Yes. Do I foresee this as bad things on the horizon and this is going to be a messy organization going forward? No, I'm going to give him plenty of leeway for growth.
So let's get to the trade that Howie did make yesterday, Dorial Green Beckham. Do you like that trade?
Sure, because they gave up next to nothing. And I don't want to knock Dennis Kelly. He seems to be a very nice guy. I didn't think he was worthy of a fifth-round pick when they took him 4 years ago. And to his credit, he's been in the league 4 straight years. I think if it's more of an indictment of the fact that the Eagles couldn't get someone better than him over the last 4 years to take that roster spot. I just don't think the guy's an NFL offensive lineman. So to get a talented player like Green Beckham for someone who isn't really an NFL player, it's a good deal. Now, Beckham could very well blow up. He may never catch a ball in the Eagle uniform. He may do something foolish or dumb enough between now and the first game of the season that the Eagles wash their hands of him. But we know that he's a talented player. He's the number one ranked high school player coming out of high school 4 years ago. So the talent is there. He had some plays last year, decent numbers as a rookie wide receiver. He's just not a good kid, and he doesn't seem to be a hard worker. The fact that Tennessee gave up on him as fast as they did doesn't bode well. But the downside is so minimal, giving up Kelly. I don't think you can call this a bad trade in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I talked to Frank Wycheck yesterday, who does their games for Titans Radio, and he said that on DGB that he looks like Tarzan and plays like Jane. I thought that was funny, but I'll side on it with you, and I think it's a low-risk, high-reward. The only concerns I have are the character issues, like you mentioned. As a franchise with Doug Peterson and the culture that he's trying to bring back to Philadelphia, as a franchise, what can the Eagles do to try to limit those character problems from actually being an issue?
I like the way you phrased the question, the character issues and Doug Peterson trying to bring character in. Some people would say it's the exact opposite because Chip Kelly was a major character.
Culture.
Right. We saw him push guys who had quote unquote question marks attached to their character straight out the door in Philadelphia. I've always believed that you can't have a team of attitude players, that's just going to get too toxic and you're not going to be able to win. But if your goal is to win, then you have to have the most talented roster you can get, too. And if it means you've got to work a little harder and coach him up a little bit more and put a little bit more effort in to a guy who's got some character issues, well, that's your job as a coach. And I thought Chip leaned too heavily on we need to have perfect marching order working guys. I like the fact that the Eagles are willing to take a chance. Now, if the kid's going to be bad news, if he's going to be a bad influence on others around him, if he's making it more difficult for you to coach the other 52 in the room, well, then, yeah, you got to cut ties, but you got to take a shot. What the hey? You're upgrading the talent on your team, just like we were talking about handling communications better. Doug Peterson has yet to prove whether he is or isn't going to be a good coach in the ability to keep guys in line and improve their attitudes. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say let's give it a shot and see how he handles a guy like Beckham Green.
It's not saying much, but I have to imagine DGB on paper, and I know paper means squat, becomes now this team's second best wide receiver. Fair?
He might be this team's best wide receiver.
Better than Matthews, you think? That's a problem, Jody Mack.
Matthews has had 2 really solid and productive years, but he's not a big play guy. He wasn't in college. He hasn't been his first 2 years. He will beat you with consistency more than superiority. Beckham's got superior skills. His skills are better than Matthews for me, but he's got to be able to do it over a period of time. He's got to keep himself out of trouble. So if you're asking me to project who's going to end up having a better season, yeah, I'm going to take Matthews. But if you're asking me who has the highest potential, yeah, I'll take the guy they acquired yesterday.
Expectations for the Birds this year are just so low. I like their defense, but the offense is a big question mark. I'm not in love with Bradford. The wide receivers, like we've been talking about, don't impress anyone. And the running backs, I don't have a lot of confidence in Ryan Matthews to stay healthy. You've been doing this for a long time. Are expectations as low as ever in this town for the Eagles entering a season?
Pretty close. The latter stages of Ray Rhodes, I would say, is in the same vicinity. You'd have to go back, if you want to go further than that, all the way back past Buddy Ryan, which is now sneaking up on 30 years ago when Buddy was hired. So maybe only once in the last 30 years, expectations this low. And, of course, there are always, everybody in every fan base, there's some that believe the optimistic slant and that because this division is as obtainable as it is, the Giants were 6-10. Their defense should be improved, but by how much? The Redskins won it fair and square at 9-7, but they didn't wow anybody at 9-7. And Dallas, it all comes down to Romo and his health, but they were 4-12 last year. There's no world beater. There's no Seattle, there's no Arizona, there's no Carolina, there's no New England, there's no Denver, there's no Pittsburgh in this division. So you think that if you do some things well and you have some guys who overachieve a little bit, you can steal a division. That's why they stuck with Bradford. They think they can steal this division this year. And if that's the case, then those who are on the optimistic path are going to be able at the end of the season say, see, I told you so. Eagles are a division winner.
Jody Mack joins us. I'll be shocked if that's the case. Let's get to the Jets, though. With the quarterbacks, can you see Todd Bowles keep 4 quarterbacks?
I've said no all along since they made the pick of Hackenberg in the second round during the draft. I just didn't see 4 quarterbacks. Now, you had to wait forever for Fitzpatrick to be re-signed, but they did, and he's going to be their starter. I'm a Bryce Petty guy. When the Jets took him in the 4th round 2 years ago in the draft, I thought he was a second-round talent. And when the Jets passed on him in the second round, I was ticked. When they passed him on the 3rd round, I was really ticked. When they got him in the 4th round, I was ecstatic because I thought they were getting a steal of a player. And either because they didn't do a good enough job developing him, or he didn't come along quickly enough. He really had a redshirt year last year, preseason, practices, whatever else. From what I saw, and I was at the opening exhibition game, he played very well. I'm hearing that he's much better in camp, that the game has slowed down for him, and that he's every bit the quarterback that Geno Smith is. And if that's the case, they've got to have nerve enough to make him their backup quarterback. If they do, then they will attempt to trade Geno Smith. I don't really know what they would get. They used a second-round pick on him just a couple of years ago. My guess it would be certainly a day 2 pick, a 6 that maybe can move to a 5, or a 7 that could move to a 6, depending on how much he plays for his new team. And if no one will give them anything, I think they got to bite the bullet and cut him. That's what I would do. I don't know what the Jets are going to do. Bowles has played his cards close to the vest. He said this week that Geno Smith is my backup quarterback right now. Well, right now can change down the line, so I think we got 2 more weeks to figure this out. But I think the Jets are fine at the quarterback position. It just is going to be the question of who's the backup week 1. Is it Mr. Petty or is it Mr. Smith?
You talked about how much you like Petty coming out of college. What specifically did you like about his game?
He's got a gun. He's not afraid to pull the ball down and make a play with his legs when he has to. I get it. He played in an Art Briles system, which is very freelance, and that throws the ball all over the lot, and he didn't take snaps under center. But I just love the fact that he was fearless back there. Throw the ball short, throw the ball long, throw intermediate, throw to guys who are covered and try and throw them open. I liked everything about his game, and I thought it would translate to the NFL. It took a little longer, I guess, last year than I thought. Maybe that was my bad, that I didn't evaluate how much of change it is from an Art Briles system to an NFL system. But his skill set never did change, and I still love it.
From the Jets standpoint, I think this is a Jets team that could be very competitive, and they have a lot of talent on this team. But that schedule is such a tough one, Jody. That could be the downfall of their season. And I know that sounds a little bit silly because that's just how it works from sometimes in the course of a football season. Sometimes you just get a tough schedule. But that schedule could be the killer for them.
It is what it is, and I know you're a Patriot guy, and they're the team to beat. I get that. They always are in the division. But the Bills' schedule is almost – there's only 2 games difference between the other teams in your division. And the Jets ran second in the division and just lost out on the wild card, so it'll come down to those tiebreakers in the wild card again if they finish 10-6 again, which I think they can. But they have to win big games. And, hey, last year, you go in, you beat your ex-coach, Rex Ryan, in Week 17, and you're in the wild card game. So the Jets have nobody to blame but themselves. And if they don't make the playoffs this year, I'm not going to look at a tough schedule as the reason why they weren't good enough to get it done.
There's been a reason why Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a journeyman during the course of his NFL career. Can you see him being consistent and trying to come close to replicating the numbers that he produced last year?
Yes, because he's still got the same core wide receivers there. The Jets didn't get any worse at wide receiver, and he worked as well as he did with the crew that he had last year. Maybe this year they'll figure out a way to get the tight end slightly more productive. I don't think they're ever going to have, they sure as heck don't have a Gronkowski on their team, but they need to get a little bit more production out of their tight end. I think Forte will be better out of the backfield than anybody else. I think they're going to miss Chris Ivory. They made a judgment call. They went for Forte, a little bit more balance to his game. But Ivory was a damn good running back for the Jets the last couple of years, and I think they'll miss him for tough yards on third down. Powell's a really solid third down type back. Yeah, I don't think the offense is going to get any worse. So if Fitz can just reproduce what he did last year, Jets offense should be just as productive, if not even taking a small step up.
Wrapping up with Jody McDonald, who joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Let's close with the Giants. Snacks and Pugh got into a fight the other day. Is that good when you get players on their own team get into fights in training camp?
If you break it up fast enough that no one gets hurt, I say yes. Now, if anybody breaks a finger and all of a sudden is sitting on the IR, now it's idiotic. Yeah, an occasional fight. I've talked to a lot of head coaches over the years. Some will tell me on the record, some will tell me off the record. But more often than not, they're okay with it as long as it's not continued. You can't have fights every single day. You can't have guys on the team hating each other. But if it's a good, wholesome competition, tempers flare type thing, if they break it up fast enough, it's perfectly fine. If I'm the head coach of the Giants, Ben McAdoo, who's new at this, I'm actually smiling going back to my office that day.
Do you like that hire of McAdoo?
Yeah, I do. I think he's a really good offensive mind. The Giants' staff wasn't bad. They were able to keep it mostly intact. I was a Tom Coughlin guy, but the time had come. He had to go. They needed a change. Better than bringing somebody else in from the outside. McAdoo, like every first-year coach, will probably have some growing pains early, but I think he's going to grow into being a very good NFL head coach.
This is going to sound so simplistic, but if you want that connection from Eli to Odell to develop this year and get the best out of that combination, that right side of the offensive line, that's the X factor to me, Jody Mack. If those big boys on the right side of that offensive line can produce, I put the Giants, and I don't say this convincingly because I don't trust any of the teams in the NFC East, but if that right side produce, I say that they're the favorites to win the NFC East.
No, I'm not ready to go there.
Ooh, okay.
Because I need to see that defense. They spent a lot of money in free agency, but we got to see if those players are worth it. I'm not ready to make. I think, to be truthful with you, Zach, I think they're four co-favorites in that division. I think any of the four teams could win a division, and I think any of the four teams could finish in last place. If you tell me the Giants are going to be 10-6 and win the division, I'd say, yeah, they got a shot. You tell me Giants are going 5-11, they're going to finish last, I'd tell you, yeah, that could happen too. It's so close a division. There is no standout as far as I'm concerned. So it can go either way. You're right about the offensive line, and they not only have to pass protect for Eli. I'm only okay with the Giant running game. Jennings is solid, but he's nothing spectacular. Someone needs to step up and make some big plays for them, rip off some 40, 50-yard runs to keep the defense honest, to make it easy for Eli and Beckham and et al. In their passing game.
Last one with Victor Cruz continuing to have injury bugs hurt him. Hasn't played since week 6 of 2014. When does Cruz just say, hey, this isn't working out, I have to call it a career?
Not until the Giants kind of push him in that direction, because the money's still coming in, the contract's still in place, so I wouldn't walk away if I were him. If you're looking for the silver lining, Giant fans, their rookie wide receiver Sterling has looked very good so far in camp. It takes the pressure off Cruz to push it past maybe where he needs to be ready for that first game of the season. If he can take his time, maybe there's a better curve in his development and rehab coming back from the injury. If he was as desperately needed as it might have been looked on paper before the rookie started opening eyes in camp, he might have done something that would set him back. That's now not the case. So Victor Cruz can come back as he sees fit, as the Giant training staff sees fit, and maybe that works out best for all parties.
Jody Mack, always enjoy talking to you. Thanks so much.
Gelb, you the man. Congrats on the show, and best of luck with it, my friend.
Thank you so much. As Joe B would say, your former partner, all the love, bro. Jody Mack.